Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Gittin Daf Beis. We're starting the new Masechta, which begins talking about a get. Hamevi get min Medinas Hayam. A person brings a get from Medinas Hayam, which Rashi says that Kol Chutz La'aretz Kari Lein Medinas Hayam Bar Mebavel. Other than Bavel, which we'll discuss why, all other countries are considered to be Medinas Hayam. So if a person brings a get from an outside location, we have a concern, as we're going to see two reasons in the Gemara, that the shliach who is bringing this get needs to say in front of me, it was written in front of me, it was signed, and again, this shliach was made into a shliach halacha by the husband to bring the get to the woman. Now, on this, Tosfos over here says that typically we find the word get, and that could also reference other documents, and therefore sometimes we stipulate, we say Gittin Nashim. Here we don't say this because majority of the time when we're discussing this, and certainly in this Masechta, we just need to say the word get, and we understand that's referring to a get Isha. Tosfos also brings down the famous statement as to why a get has to be 12 lines. A typical get is 12 lines long, and he brings down the word get is actually the numerical value of 12, Gimel 3, Tes 9, 9 plus 3 is 12, and therefore that's the reason why a get is 12 lines. So we'll have to see why, but the shliach needs to make this declaration that it was signed and written in front of him. And again, this is whenever he brings a get from outside of the country, Medinas Hayam. And again, we're going to discuss all of this at great length when we get into the Gemara. Also, not only from Medinas Hayam, but also if he brings it from these other locations, Rashi says this is between Kadesh and Bared. That is how we interpret Bein Rekim Chagar, as brought down in Sefer Bereshis. Rabbi Lezer Omer Afil Mikfar Ludim Lud, even from the village of Ludim to Lud, which Rashi says Shima Chutz La'aretz, which is Kfar Ludim is in Chutz La'aretz. Lud she's Smuchala v'Eretz Yisrael. So these two cities are literally bordering cities, and they're very close to one another. But one is in Chutz La'aretz, and the other one is in Eretz Yisrael. So we're going to have to understand what exactly this machlokas is between all of them. And then Chachamim Omer Inu Sarah Shiam Rafan Nechtam El Mebim Medinas Hayam. He says it's not true. You're only required to say B'fan Nechtam. The question is, how is this different than the Reisha if it comes from Medinas Hayam? So again, the Gemara is going to discuss that. Again, unless you're bringing it from an outside country, outside of Israel, V'hamoylech, says Rashi, or the other way around. If you bring the get from Eretz Yisrael and Medinas Hayam, from Israel to Chutz La'aretz, let's say you bring a get from Israel to the United States, so you also have to say B'fanei them. And then he says, V'hamevim min Medina l'Medina b'Medinas Hayam sar shem b'fanei nechtam. If you are in the same country, and let's say you want to bring a get from New York to Chicago, so you also need to say B'fanei nechtam, even though you're in the same country. But because you're in Medinas Hayam, you're outside of Israel, so you have to say it. So on this, the Gemara explains what's hegmonia. So Rashi says, it's really like one city which has these two like districts. So even though they're really very close to one another, they're like either bordering cities or within the same city, you have one city which is like almost like a suburb of the next, but there's no flow of traffic from one to the next, so also it has to be said there. Rabbi Huda Omer Merekim Lemizrach Verekim Kemizrach. So he's delineating exactly what are the borders of Eretz Yisrael, so this way we know when do you have to say B'fanei nechtam, and when do you not have to. So from Rechem to the east, which is the eastern border of Eretz Yisrael, that has the din of east, says Rashi. Atzma nidonis kamizrach ha'olam v'lo Eretz Yisrael. That's considered not in Israel. But maybe mirrekim. So if you bring a get, let's say from Rekem to Yerushalayim, so you do have to say it. Mi Ashkelon l'darim, Ashkelon kedarim. Similarly, if a person brings a get from Ashkelon, let's say again to Yerushalayim, again he would have to say Ashkelon is the southern part. Mi Akko Tzafayin v'Akko Kasafayin. Akko, which is actually a little bit on the west coast, but it's very, very north. So Akko is considered to be the border there, but Akko is Kasafayin. Again, if you bring a get from Akko to Yerushalayim, for example, you would have to say B'fanei Akko Eretz Yisrael Gittin, so he's chaylik, and he says no. When it comes to Akko, it's like Eretz Yisrael, and therefore you don't have to say. Now, the question is, why does it not mention the west? So Rashi points this out for an obvious reason. We don't need a border town. Shahayam Hagadoil Gavula, because the Mediterranean Sea, also the Yam HaTichain, as it's called, but in the Gemara it's often called the Yam Hagadol, the Great Sea, there, that is the western border of Eretz Yisrael. This is going to be again mentioned in the Gemara. Hamaybe get Eretz Yisrael in Sarach Shiyam Rafananetav. If let's say you're bringing a get in Eretz Yisrael within those borders, and let's say you are again in Yerushalayim, and you want to bring the get to Modi'in, which is pretty close by, let's say L'moshel, so you would not have to say B'fananetav, and we'll see why. But they're complainers. For example, the husband claims that this get is mezuyif, it is forged, so yiskayim b'chaisma. Says Rashi, if you have witnesses that testify on the signatures, or you have other people that are able to testify, yes, we validate that these are good signatures, kosher, then the get is good. If there's no complainers, if the husband's not complaining, mustaba kosher, we can certainly assume that the get is fine. The habikin lishma, and here Rashi already alludes to what the Gemara is going to say, because they're experts in lishma in Eretz Yisrael. They know the requirement that a get has to be written for the sake of the woman. The edim mitsuyin tamid l'kaimo, and there's constant travel on, let's say, Highway 1, right, to get to Yerushalayim, so therefore it's easy to be able to get witnesses to come back and forth. Okay, let's just finish the rest of this Rashi. Kanabinu Gemara, Bati Dinin Kivuin. Okay, so my taima, what is the reason? Why is it necessary to say B'fanei Nachtav? So, two answers, and this is obviously very famous. Rabbi Omer, as we continue to Beis and Beis, Lavisha in Bikin Lashma. Because outside of Israel, if you're in Argentina, those people are not experts in the laws of Lashma. What does that mean? So Rashi says, Ein b'nei Medinas Hayam b'nei Torah. The people who live outside of Eretz Yisrael, at least then, were not b'nei Torah. Ve'ein yodim shesach lichtav haget l'shem lisha. They have no idea all the laws that a get has to be actually written for the sake specifically for a woman. It says in the pasuk that a get must be written l'shma for the sake of that woman. Hilkach, therefore, Amar hashliach b'fanei nechtam. We require the shliach to say these words. Umemela shalinan le im nechtav l'shma. Then we can ask him, was it written l'shma? For who Omer in? And he'll say yes. And that's basically it. And where it says my time, we're going to ask my time. Why do we have to go through this like dialogue? Just say b'fanei nechtav l'shma, b'fanei nechtam l'shma. Why does it have to be b'fanei nechtam? We're going to say, oh, was it written l'shma? Yes. The Gemara is going to explain that. So that's one possible reason. Rava Omer lefi she'ein edim mitzuin l'kaimoi. The issue is it's hard to be able to obtain witnesses. Says Rashi, ein shayaros mitzuyis misham l'kan. If we're dealing with a get coming from from Brazil to Israel, there aren't caravans that go there. Shem Yabu Habal, if a husband comes, the Arer, and he complains, Lemer Lo Kasavtiv, I didn't write this, Shehu Edim Mitsuyin Hakir Chasimas Edim, will be able to immediately obtain witnesses to be able to verify that this is a valid get. V'aminuhu l'shliach, and then we'll be able to, we can believe the shliach. We'll come up parach, ben lo rabba liboy trey. We're going to end up saying, why is the shliach alone believed? Don't we need two edim, which is something which is going to be posed right on this very daf. So again, the shliach himself is believed to counter any claim of forgery. So my benayu, the truth is they sound like both valid reasons. So what's the nafka between them? So ik benayu diasuhu betray. Let's say two people came. What does that mean? It says Rashi, Shneim nasu shluchim ligarsha. So instead of the husband appointing one shliach, he has two guys go to deliver the get. The get yoytzim mitachas yedei shneihim. So the get is being delivered by both guys. L'rabba boila meimar. L'rabba lo boila meimar. There's still an issue of l'shma, but you don't have to worry about the whole issue anymore about Edim. Shari shnayim heim. There's already two of them. The imi arer bal hari himatzum l'kaimo. So you don't, you shouldn't need to even say b'fan nechtam. You have two shluchim, so those people are Edim that they saw everything happen. And therefore, you wouldn't even need to say b'fan nechtam if you had two witnesses as shluchim. Inami, another nafkamina, is medina be'eretz Yisrael. If you're in Eretz Yisrael and you're going from one city to another city, one province to the other, Kigon says Rashi Yehuda beGolil. These two different locations. Why? Even though obviously Yehuda and Go are cities in Eretz Yisrael, but there was not a lot of caravans that went from one location to the next. They're all experts in Israel, no Shema. So therefore, it's not an issue of Lishma. Doesn't make any difference if it's from Yehuda to Golil. However, according to Rabbi, since in Sheretz Mitzuyos, you would have to say. So that's the second nafkamina. The first difference is that if you have two shluchim, they'll act as edim. So then you don't need to find edim; they're right there. Alternatively, two cities that there are typically there's no travel between them in Eretz Yisrael. Inami, and then Gemara finally gives another nafkamina. Ba'isa Medina be'Medina Sayyam. If you're in the same Medina, the same country in Medina Sayyam, you're in Brooklyn and you want to give a get to someone in Manhattan, and there's a lot of trains. It says from one city to another city in the same place. People in New York may not know the laws of Lishma. So in that situation, there's a lot of trains you can take. So since there's all these different caravans that can get you from Brooklyn to Manhattan, so you're not going to have to worry about Edim. You can easily get them. So those are the three nafkaminas between them. Okay. Let's look at TB1. Hamevi get me'ir le'ir from one city to the next. Ba'ois Medina, b'Medina Sayyam. You're in another country, but you're me'ir le'ir ba'ois Medina, which is what we're talking about, Brooklyn to this. Yim sarchlem b'fananata madua. Since we just had this, so I wrote. This is what I wrote. If it is lishma, they aren't bikim. So sarchloimer. If it's due to shiyaris mitzuyos, if it is, I add a little bit more here, b'shash shalom, then you don't say b'fanai. But if it's a time that you can't travel from city, then you do say b'fanai nechtam. Okay, so I think that was a little bit more than was necessary, but the point is, TB1, that is a nafkamina between these two shitas, if it is b'ois medina b'medina siyam. So just b'pashtus, again, our example in traveling from Brooklyn to Manhattan. So there's still an issue of Lishma, but there's no issue of Lefishein Edom Mitsuyin L'Kaimai. Okay. Now L'Rabba Diyam Lefishein became Lishma. So according to Rabbi, who says his issue is that you have to they don't know the laws, so Liboy Trey. L'Chayra, he should need two. Why do we believe the shliach who just says, "Oh, b'fanei nechtam"? Okay, we believe the shliach. What do you mean? Midi have a kol edish b'Torah. Shouldn't this be the same thing as any other din in the Torah that we typically require two witnesses? So the Gemara answers, no. Eid echad eman b'Yisurin, says Rashi. Shar hamina Torah kol echad v'echad v'Yisrael al frashas truma v'al shchita v'al nikor hagid v'hachelev. So all these different dinim, you can go to someone's house, and if the wife says, yes, everything is kosher, that's it. Eid echad eman b'Yisurin. Assuming she's a kosher person, you can trust her, and that's it. So l'chayra, we should say the same thing over here. There's eid echad eman b'Yisurin. So therefore, is she going to be mutter once the get is accepted, or she remain aser? So that's eid echad. What it should be neman. Gemara says no, you can't apply eid echad eman b'Yisurin here. Why not? You can only say that when you have something in front of you which the law is chazik isur. You have no idea, is it kosher, is it not kosher? Is it kosher fat, or is it a non-kosher piece of fat? So we don't know. The law is chazik isura. It's possible there's nothing wrong with it at all, and therefore, since the starting point is maybe it's allowed, we've never established that it's wrong, that there's a problem with it. So then the din is that, okay, we believe one witness. So it's the question. We know that this is a case of davar shebe'ereva, that the starting point is she's an eshes ish. So we know she's usher to the Ganzavelt. So in that case, how do we automatically assume, just by the testimony of one guy, this one shliach, that we're going to believe him? So in this Rashi says, Hacha is chazik, Bahach isasa iser eshes ish. Umetevel shchito gamrin law. When it comes to tevel and shchita, which could maybe also be ischazik isura, because tevel is usher until you're tithed, and you can't eat an animal until it's shechted. However, it's biyadul asakna, it's in your own hands to be able to fix it. Mashenkin, when it comes to this case, you need a get, you need her to accept it, he has to accept. There's a lot of factors. The sover has to have done it properly. Question 5. So by tevel, by hafrashas trumas and meiser, shchitas, v'shchita, neman, and when do we not believe? Of elu yisurim ein neman, afal pi de lo yischazik yisura, afal pi de lo yischazik yisura. I don't know what that means. So, and it says over here, but davar shebe'ereva eno neman. That, I don't know why that's the case of alphabet. The lowest chazik yisura. It's not ischazik yisura. Okay, I'm not sure how to understand that question, but that's a chiluk that Rashi brings down, that when it comes to trumas and maestris and shchita, it's biyadul asakin. You could fix it; it's in your hands. But over here, it's out of the shliach's hands. It's not him that does everything. So the question is, why do we only require one witness? So before we see the answer, let's look at this Taisus. Lofishian bekin l'shema. Him timer fact Taisus. Ma'ishna l'shema de'en bekin mishar hilchos Gittin. Kagon mechuber. V'shina shema v'shema v'nechta b'yom v'nechta b'layla. We don't mention any other cases of this requirement of ein bekian, that they're not experts when it comes to, for example, that the get cannot be attached to the ground. You can't be sleeping. or Rishina Shmo rather, that the name is changed, her name is changed, or the location. It was has to be written and signed. It was written or signed at night. There's a lot of different laws that people just don't maybe not know. So why aren't we concerned of those? So Tosa says, Mefarish Rabbeinu Tam the B'chol Hilchas Gittin B'kiyin. El Dahach Drasha, the V'kasav Law L'Shma Enu Niris Lahem Iker Drasha. V'en B'kiyin Perish Ein Chayshish L'Drasha L'Shma. So very fascinating Tosa, which Ayin Sham discusses that maybe for some reason the notion of the kasav lo lishma, because it's not as concrete of a drasha and concrete halacha, so therefore maybe people are not as familiar with it than all these other halachas, which ironically, people who learn this Masechta, that's probably the one halacha that they know the most. Okay. Anyway, let's go back to the question. One witness should not be accepted. So why do we believe him to say b'fana nechta? My answer is Rabbi Kianhain, because most people are experts. And therefore not chayshid. Therefore, even though you're right, normally we would require two, but okay, but the majority, we go after the majority. Oh, 1 second. The truth is, even according to our mayor, who in general is chayish for the miyut, even for a minority or in something which is not so relevant, something doesn't always happen. And Rashi reminds us of this. We had in Yavamos elsewhere. Gabi katan katana. If you have a young girl, young boy, and let's say the girl, her husband dies, childless, so she's zokak liyamim. In chotzin v'miyamin, we don't do chalit or yibum while they're young. Why? Katan shemi mati sris, katana shemati mati ionus. So it's possible that they're incapable of having children. One could be a sris, she could be an ionus. Now, what's the chances of that? Most women have the ability to have children, and most men are able to, again, produce, to be able to have children. That's a miyut. But nonetheless, he's so concerned of the miyut that he will not allow yibam machalit to take place while they're that age. They have to wait. So, according to Amir, we see from there he's chayish miyut. So, shouldn't we be chayish for the miyut over here? What do you mean robi kiyin? So what? There's a miyut that are not. So stam sifri dedaini migmar gemiri. We're not just talking about people on the street. Here we're talking about the scholars and people who are writing Gittin. Generally, people who write Gittin know what they're doing. And therefore, because of that, it's not just rov. It's almost a guarantee that it was written l'shma. Rabbanan, so then the question is, why do you need to say l'shma at all? We're talking about dayanim here. Obviously, they know the laws of l'shma. Rabbanan hu de atzruch. It was just the Rabbanan who stepped in and that said, you know what, let them still say b'fana nechtam, because as Rashi says, let's say you come across a get as hard as to find, someone who's the wife and the husband's names are the same. It was all written for this person, and then they changed their mind, I'm not going to divorce her. And then someone else with the same name, she has the same name, they come across this get and they use it, so that would be possible. So therefore, in this remote chance, this could happen, and therefore we don't want this to occur. Therefore, the Rabbanan require you to say b'fana nechtam. The hacha, as we continue to daf gimel and aleph. So if we have that concern, so why again is one enough? Mishum iguna hekil Rabbanan. Haiku, fine. So we're lenient, and therefore we say that because normally we do require two witnesses, but we're going to allow one witness because of this concern of an iguna. Because if we require two witnesses, what if we don't obtain those two witnesses? And then it becomes problematic, but she'll never end up getting remarried because she's in the state of limbo. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Haikulahu chumrahu. It sounds like a cool, but it's really being strict. Because if you needed two people, and two people came, then the husband will not be able to stand up against these two people, and she'll be able to get remarried, and there'll be no issues in her future life. But with one guy, maybe the husband will still come and passel. So Gemara says, Kivandi Amar, Bifnei kama noisnala, in front of how many is it given? Says Rashi, shliach zel ishtoi, this shliach to the wife, the omer bifneihem b'fanenechtam, etc. There's this whole procedure. Rav Yochanan, Rav Chanina, chad omer bifnei beis, chad bifnei gimel. It was in front of 2 or 3. Mikar mayik medek dayak. The shliach was probably very careful originally, so that he would not cause trouble for himself. Says Rashi, Hashliach kishimikabu miyad abal, when he accepts the get from the husband, yodeh bo shibaratzon megarsha, he knows that he wants her to get divorced. He doesn't want any more trouble. V'inami oirer enu neman, or maybe even if he does complain, he won't be believed. Devadi dakba milsa shapir, because he most certainly looked into the matter very well. So basically what the Gemara is saying is, if there's one guy, the husband comes and complains, it's not going to be effective. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's look at question 2. Madua in sarach loimer beis edim shiamru b'fanenu nechtam b'fanenu nechtam. So that we actually didn't have. Kechol edish shibatayra, or maybe this is time lefi shemikin l'shma midaraisa ro bikian. Right, as we said, okay, some of that's going to be mentioned on tomorrow's daf. Question 7. Shliach shomer b'fanenechtam yosabal ma'arer. The husband comes and complains. Ma'dua shliach neman l'omrin in oikichad b'hadichad. This we did have. It's because kivan shenastu b'fnei shnayim. Since it was given in front of 2 people, mikara dayak shliach. He's going to be very careful. That he's not going to end up causing trouble for himself. And we don't believe the husband regarding these complaints. TA 30. Of course, the 2 answers, Bikian, or because Ein Eidim Mitsuin L'Kaimoi, and then Umadua Ein Sarach Shnei Eidim L'Zeh. Write it shortly. It's not so easy. Why? So he writes this. So he says, because the scholars, most of them know what they're doing, right? So therefore you don't have to worry about it. That's TA 30. And then if you hold a fish edim asum l'kaimo in sarach beis the medinas hayam edim hachasumim al hashtar. This is actually we're going to see. This is really in Daf Gimel. Nasa kimish nechra edusim bebeisdim. It's as though their testimony has already been scrutinized in Beis Din. Let's see if we have another question over here. That's it. Adkan.